Yo, what's going on, guys? Seth Spartan here, nutrition, training, and hormone expert and Prometheus Pro bodybuilder with Prometheus HRT, the world's best testosterone and hormone replacement clinic. Use my code Spartan to save on either testosterone or HGH replacement therapy or peptides, MK-677, as long as you qualify. So guys, without any further ado, here we go. MK-677 unleashed like you've never heard it before. Guys, we're going to go through all the pros, unbiased, uncensored, everything you need to know. Then we're going to go through the cons, unbiased, uncensored, again, everything you need to know. Then we're going to go down to dosage. We're going to talk about dosing, talk about the latest medical studies, and then also we're going to finish up with any extra additional information that you need to know, and plain and simple, that people just don't talk about or don't know in the first place. So without any further ado, this is MK-677 Unleashed. Here we go. Starting with the pros. Pro number one, MK-677, also known as ibutamoren, is a powerful growth hormone secretagogue. There is no if, and, or buts around this. This cannot be argued anyway. In medical studies, scientific research, and literature, MK-677 is without a doubt, undoubtedly, cannot be argued. It is a very extremely powerful growth hormone secretagogue. In other words, it works. Plain and simple, it works, and it works very well for releasing human growth hormone. Moving on. Second pro, MK-677 functions the exact same or identical to GHRP6. In the medical study I was looking at, it said, it didn't use the word identical, it used the word it is. You can't even distinguish the difference between GHRP6 and MK-77 in terms of mechanism of action, or as I have it written here, it functions in terms of creating growth hormone release from the pituitary gland. So this comes with many pros and many cons. We're going to talk about the pros, and then we'll explain why there are some big cons with this. But the take-home point, guys, that you need to remember is that MK-677 functions the exact same or identical to GHRP6. That's growth hormone releasing peptide 6, which is a peptide. But just to take home this point, you just have to remember this. It functions the exact same. Its mechanism of action release is exact same to GHRP6, which is a very different, it's a completely different class. It is a peptide and not an oral secretagogue. All right, moving on in the pros. MK-677 is an extremely powerful growth hormone releaser without any loss or desensitization. When you watch my other peptide videos, what we're going to be talking about with peptides, whether it's GHRP6, GHRP2, hexarelin, even ipamorelin at high dosages, what's the big problem? What's the big deal? You see loss or desensitization at large dosages or continuous dosing, whether it's twice a day, once a day. And because of this, doctors, clinics, they advise time off, downtime for those receptor sites on the pituitary gland to reset, resensitize, and once again be able to output maximal growth hormone response to those receptor sites being binded by, whether you're using GHRP6, GHRP2, or anything else. Again, I want to give you guys all the information so that you know why and how this works. And again, you can look at any of the scientific or medical studies on this, type in MK-677 ibutamoren studies, and you can just spend your day going through that. That's what I was doing before this. to brush up on some of this stuff. Moving on, here we go. We talked about the last point, seal that. Next, hybrid pulse pattern. Guys, we have to talk about this. The hybrid pulse pattern of what? MK-677. MK-677 is like nothing that has ever been created before. Why? Well, guys, simply put, MK-677, first off, it is a growth hormone releasing secretagogue, releasing drug that can be taken orally. You cannot do this. Anything else that acts on the ghrelin receptor site in the brain to release what? Growth hormone is a peptide. MK-677 is one of the only, if not the only, I have to check, drugs or molecules that you can take to do what? To stimulate the ghrelin receptor site on the pituitary gland. Because of this, we're talking long half-life and a much different mechanism of action than, a drug like GHRP6, GHRP2, even though, I'm going to quote the medical literature again, word for word, even though functionally it is indistinguishable mechanism of action versus GHRP6. And again, saying it for the third time, GHRP6 and MK-677, even though they are different, they work exactly the same. In fact, scientists cannot tell the difference between giving a drug which contains GHRP6 to people versus MK-677 in terms of how the growth, in terms of how the pituitary releases growth hormone. We're not talking about after that. We're talking about how it affects growth hormone release. Same action exactly. Amazing. And the exact same action on cortisol and prolactin for that matter. Even though the drugs work differently, long term. Again, we're talking about this now. Okay, so hybrid pulse pattern, what does this mean? I completely skipped over this. I forgot what I was talking about. The hybrid pulse pattern of MK-677, also known as ibutamoren. Now, with peptides, all right? Peptides, we went through a couple. Peptides, growth hormone releasing peptides, GHRP6, GHRP2, hexarelin, ipamorelin, and others. Basically, you take an injection sub-Q or IM with an insulin syringe, what happens? That drug right away is going to basically peak in the bloodstream and do what? Boom! Big growth hormone pulse, all right? They all work essentially the same way. GHRP6, 2, hexarelin, ipamorelin. You take the drug, boom, you get a big growth hormone pulse, tons of the drug saturating ghrelin receptor sites on the pituitary gland, big pulse, same exact way. The only difference is with a longer drug like ipamorelin, for example, it's going to be more like a shield volcano instead of this huge spike. But, in contrast, they all kind of work the same way. MK-677, guys, is not like this. It's completely different. It has a hybrid pulse pattern. Now, what does this even mean? What does this mean? Hybrid pulse pattern. It means that you get a bump similarly to those other peptides we talked about. GHRP6, GHRP2, ipamorelin, hexarelin. You get a similar bump, boom, like you would with those peptides. But then you get that, because of the long half-life, again, we talked about around 24 hours, give or take, with MK-677. So not only do you get that bump, much like the peptides, but you also get that drug still in your system, which is going to do what? You get a big bump, big growth hormone pulse, and then your body's other natural pulses are going to be amplified after that. So it's a hybrid pulse pattern. You have, think about, guys, GnRH, or GnRH, Samorelin. Think about CJC 1295 DAC or no DAC. They all work the same way. What do? They don't create a pulse. They amplify your body's natural pulsing, thereby increasing growth hormone. MK-677, even though mechanism of action on the pituitary gland to release growth hormone is exactly the same as GHRP6, it still amplifies your body's pulses. Why? Because of that long-term 24-hour effect we talked about. So just because this drug has an extremely long half-life, it is actually changing long-term the functioning on the brain, namely the pituitary gland, to release human growth hormone. So what's going to happen? You get a pulse, same as you would with peptides, but then you get that pulse, and then after that pulse, natural pulses are amplified. They found in the medical studies, medical literature, that guess what? MK-677 does not, let me say that again, does not interfere or disrupt your body's natural human growth hormone pulses. It needs to be said, a lot of people don't know this. So, we talked about the hybrid pulse pattern. Moving on, MK-677 in the pros. MK-677 is extremely safe and well tolerated. Let me say that again. MK-677, oral growth hormone secretagogue, the powerful growth hormone secretagogue, is what? Extremely safe and well tolerated in medical studies, in scientific research, and pretty much in all trials so far. So, I don't know how to say it another way, but MK-677, I give it a thumbs up for safety. It's incredibly safe and effective at the same time. All right, we're not done. There's a reason why I do not, and I really will not and do not use MK-677. It's a big con, and we're going to get into it. And the biggest thing about this is that most people don't even know about it. All right, we're going to have to cover that in a second. MK-677. Last pro here to sum things up. MK-677 is an extremely powerful growth hormone secretagogue, extremely effective, extremely efficient, and it will do what? It will give large HGH, large human growth hormone increases, large IGF-1 increases, all proven, large muscle mass increases, but it will not give any fat loss. Now why? Perfect place to end the pros, moving into now the cons. Why no fat loss? People don't understand this. A lot of people don't know this. Why is it it will give large human growth hormone increases, large IGF-1 increases, large muscle mass increases, but no fat loss. And this is the exact reason why I personally will not use MK-677, even though it does everything else perfectly, wonderfully, and safely. All right, here we go. Moving into the cons. Stick with us, guys. Con number one in the cons section: zero fat loss. Now, why is this? Well, if you stuck with me for the pros, which you did, I'm sure you remember me saying like 500 times, the mechanism of action is the exact same as GHRP6 in medical studies. All right? This comes with a problem. Big problem. GHRP6 and also MK-677, ibutamorin, they do what? They stimulate the ghrelin receptor sites in the brain the same exact way, which does what? Which will cause your body to pick or prioritize the holding onto or storing of body fat. In other words, your body does not want to release that body fat. Why? Because this is a starvation technique, which is what? Stimulated by your body's natural hormone, ghrelin, which is produced in the stomach when you don't eat for long periods of time. When your stomach's empty, your stomach's rumbling, you're hungry, releases ghrelin, hits the pituitary gland, releases growth hormone. Wonderful, but it also stops, it's also a starvation hormone, which not only releases human growth hormone, but it also tells your body to basically hold on to fat tissue. It's a starvation hormone. Now, this is great at releasing growth hormone. All right, ghrelin, natural ghrelin is great at releasing growth hormone. But here's the problem. GHRP6 works almost identically. GHRP6 works almost identically to ghrelin. And guess what? MK-677 works almost identically, or as the medical research says, it is undistinguishable difference between GHRP6, which means what? That means that MK-677 works identically in the same mechanism of action as your body's natural ghrelin, which does what? It stores body fat. It makes your body want to hold onto the body fat. So MK-677, yes, it's great. Yes, it's wonderful. You know, we talked about all the pros. We talked about large HGH increase, large IGF-1 increase, muscle mass increase. We talked about, you know, extremely powerful growth hormone releasing peptide, no loss, no desensitization, extremely safe, even a high red pulse pattern. What more could you want? But then we run into the issue. MK-677 is not an advanced hormone. It has not been refined down yet. It has not been scientifically modified for maximum performance yet. It's a first class drug, much like GHRP6 was. But then guess what happened later on? They came out with GHRP2, which was able to get around that starvation binding effect, if you would, that's caused by 6. So they were able to remove a lot of it. But you still got some fat storage with GHRP2. You got the worst fat storage with GHRP6, but then you got less fat storage with GHRP2. And then guess what? They completely removed it with hexarelin. Hexarelin, you know, they completely removed it, and they also completely removed it with ipamorelin. But the problem is it took them first GHRP6. It took them one try. It took them 2 tries. It took them try 3 and try 4 when talking about peptides to get around what? This fat storage mechanism, that fat storage starvation, mechanism, which ghrelin activates, and so does MK-677, and so does GHRP6. Like I said, are you guys catching my drift? Are you guys picking up everything I'm saying? I hope you are, because I'm really trying here, because people don't know this stuff. People don't even know that MK-677, you don't lose fat with it. Just because it's continually pressing your body's starvation mode, thereby telling your body to hold on to fat. So does everything wonderful. MK-677 does everything, but it does not it does not let your body burn fat. So that's the big problem with it. Okay. Oh boy, they don't. Maybe they're gonna come out with an MK-678. And guess what? Maybe it'll be half the fat storage, or maybe it'll have none of it. But again, MK-677, unfortunately, it's a first generation, first class hormone. They haven't refined it down yet for performance purposes, even though they wanted it to be. So moving on. Boom. Yeah, we got that out of the way. This is a good video. This is fun. I like talking about MK-677. Moving on. Tired lethargy. This is con number 2. Now, synthetic ghrelin, GHRP6, and MK-677 all work almost identical. Even though they're different molecules, even though they're different drugs, they all work almost identically, all right? So not only does it stop your body from burning fat, even though HGH levels are going up. The HGH levels going up is basically countering the fat storage, and the fat storage is countering the HGH fat burning. That's how it works, and that's pretty much how I just explained it. Now, that same sort of mechanism, the activation of the starvation mode we talked about. This happens again with MK-677, GHRP6, and your body's natural ghrelin, and also a little bit with GHRP2, and that's why GHRP2, again, they haven't fully removed the fat storage effect, all right? So what does this mean? Since the starvation mode is getting pressed, MK-677 is going to make you extremely tired and extremely lethargic. Trust me, I know, all right? So, it's the same sort of thing, but if you take MK-677, be advised, you're going to be extremely tired and extremely lethargic, and no, it's not from the human growth hormone release. It's really not. I have taken pharmaceutical grade HGH, again, that's available through Prometheus HRT, and, growth hormone releasing peptides. I'm currently prescribed ipamorelin, CJC, no DAC through Prometheus HRT. It comes in one combination vial. Amazing for fat loss, amazing for ripping off body fat. However, it's not from the HGH, but rather through that pressing of that starvation mode that it makes your body, tells your body to get tired and reduce energy expenditure. All right. So not only we talked about the zero fat loss with MK-677, that's the biggest con, but also it's going to make you tired and lethargic. So if you're taking this stuff anywhere around your workout, guess what? You're going to drag. It's going to suck. Point made, case closed, moving on. Increase, con number 3, increase, guys, in what? Cortisol and prolactin. Has to be said. In medical studies, I was just going through these. In medical studies, you get an increase in cortisol, both cortisol and prolactin at the end of day 7. However, the longer you use this hormone, look what happens. In medical studies, it's almost back to baseline, complete baseline by day 14. So after 1 week of usage of MK-677, your cortisol and prolactin is still going to be increased. But if you can go, if you're doing longer than, a week and a half with MK-677, then this hormone, again, the gain is above the loss here. You're going to get, if you can hold out to 2 weeks in, your cortisol and prolactin will go back down to normal levels, just about. In medical studies, okay? Not my opinion. That's what we have the research on. Moving on, con 4, hunger. Now, I don't really need to talk on this because I've already talked about all these different aspects and everything else right in a second here. MK-677, GHRP6, and your body's natural ghrelin secreted by the stomach, which acts on the pituitary gland to release growth hormone. MK-677, GHRP6, and natural ghrelin all do essentially the same thing. Again, they have not been refined down at all, like GHRP2, hexarelin, ipamorelin. Again, GHRP2 is less than hexarelin, ipamorelin. They basically remove that function completely of hunger. Not completely from GHRP2, but with hunger. So having said that, hunger, MK-677 along with GHRP6 and obviously your body's natural ghrelin is going to cause plenty of hunger, all right? It's going to make you hungry. I can attest to this firsthand. MK-677 causes extreme hunger depending on the dosage, which is terrible, by the way. If you are trying to diet with this hormone, don't even bother unless you're taking 25 milligrams of MK-677 before bed. All right, if you take, even if you're taking 25 milligrams, it might wake you up and you might have to raid the fridge. Okay, moving on. Here we go, guys. MK-677 Unleashed. We already talked about this, so I'm not even going to touch this point. Exact function of GHRP6. We already talked about that. So, guys, having said that, we're going to now move into, guess what? Dosing. So here we go. Dosing. My personal recommendation to you. Check. My personal recommendation to you. Having said that, check with your doctor before you do absolutely anything. But this is my opinion. Dosing. My professional opinion. MK-677 dosed between 25 and 50 milligrams per day. If you want to completely max out and go above this, I would say that you can do 75 milligrams per day, AM, lunch, and PM. 75 milligrams max if you're doing it under doctor supervision. Okay? Again, check with your doctor before you do anything, but those are my recommendations. Now, I am probably, guys, honestly, the most qualified person in the world, besides a doctor, to talk about MK-677. Why? I have extensive research with it, done on it, and I've also used MK-677 myself extensively at extremely high dosages, okay? When I was at arguably my bodybuilding peak at my biggest, you can go watch my video, guys. Seth Spartan Motivation. You can see me at like 260. I'm 238 right now, okay? Just doing it 200 milligrams about of testosterone with through Prometheus HRT. Having said that, go watch my video, Seth Spartan Motivation. You can watch me at 260 crushing some insane weights. And one of the things that I was doing was 150, that's right, 150 milligrams of MK-677 per day. About 50 milligrams morning, 50 milligrams lunch, 50 milligrams evening. Now, was that overkill? Did I max things out? Probably, but I made a lot of gains, and that's just what I did. And I am not recommending that to anybody, whether it's under doctor supervision or not under doctor supervision. Again, MK-677, at the time I was using it, was completely legal to buy in the United States. I'm not sure what things are looking like now. I would have to check up on that. Having said that, whatever country you currently reside in, obviously follow your country's laws. But anyways, moving on from dosage. Any extra additional information that you need to know with MK-677. Guys, honestly, all you really need to know is this. This drug, MK-677, is extremely effective and worth it if you're only wanting to use it for muscle mass increases, HGH increases, IGF-1 increases, if you can get past the lethargy and tiredness. But it is 100% not worth it at all for fat loss. And guys, honestly, that is everything you need to know about MK-677. Guys, this is MK-677 Unleashed. I'm Seth Spartan. Stay safe, stay healthy, do everything correctly. And once again, check with your doctor before you do anything. And guys, you guessed it, we are out of here.